Welcome to our English speaking practice class. In the next hour, you are going to practice opening your mouth and speaking. Plus, you'll learn a lot of vocabulary, sentence structure, and advanced expressions at the same time. And you'll have a lot of fun. Of course, I'm Jennifer from JForrest English. You're probably wondering, what are we going to practice speaking about? Great question. And today, our topic is I need your help. So I am coming to you for help, and you are going to provide me with your help. And to do that, you need to open your mouth and speak in English. So this is going to be a great way to practice your speaking. And at the same time, you're going to share a lot of valuable advice to me and your fellow students watching. So remember, this is an English speaking practice class. So I want you to open your mouth and speak out loud. Don't just say the answer in your head. Make sure you open your mouth and say the words. Repeat after me as well to make sure you shadow my pronunciation. Yes, I want you to write your answer in the chat as well. But in addition, I want you to open your mouth and say the answer. Do we have a deal? Put yes, put yes, 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 put yes in the chat if we have a deal, and you're going to open your mouth and say the answer out loud to practice speaking. So, here is the first thing. I need your help, please. I feel so nervous speaking in front of people. I need your help. So I want you to give me your help. Open your mouth and provide me with, notice the verb here. It says recommend. And I chose this verb specifically because students make a lot of mistakes using this verb. So first, let me review the sentence structure with you. Recommend. You can use I recommend plus gerund. What is a gerund verb? It's your verb in ing. So notice we have the verb recommend, and the next verb subscribe is in the gerund form. I recommend subscribing to JForrest English. Hopefully, you would recommend that to all your friends, your coworkers, your family, or anyone you know learning English. Would you? Put yes in the chat if you would. I recommend subscribing to JForrest English. That is the gerund structure. Another structure you can use is recommend plus clause. A clause is a complete sentence, a subject, a verb, and an object if required. I recommend that you, subject, subscribe, verb, to JForrest English, the object. Now, notice that is optional. You can say, I recommend you subscribe. I recommend that you subscribe. It's optional. So now let's practice this fully. Now, first, I want you to use recommend plus gerund. Remember, your verb in ing. So please, Jonathan, Heideka, Ava, Mead, Gatluck, Stella, I need your help. I feel so nervous speaking in front of people. What do you recommend? What do you recommend? I could also ask, what would you recommend? Because it's a hypothetical. What would you recommend? What do you recommend? So I want you to answer and use recommend plus gerund. Now remember, put your recommendation in the chat and out. And in this case, we're practicing recommend plus gerund. So let's review some recommendations here. Stella said, I recommend you study hard if you want to get good grades. Good marks, good grades, the same thing. That is a great sentence, Stella, and it's grammatically correct. And it uses our structure here. I recommend subject, verb, object, a clause. You study hard. You could end the sentence there. I recommend you study hard. but she provided more information if you want to get good marks, good grades. And remember, you can have an optional that, not required. I recommend that you study hard if you want to get good marks. Excellent job, Stella. Now, you can also practice turning this into the gerund. So, what would this be in the gerund form? I recommend studying. I recommend studying. So in the gerund form, you get rid of the subject and you take your verb and you put it in the ing. I recommend studying if you want to get good marks. Excellent recommendation, Stella. Okay, so again, Roberto, AK, Mohammed, Fred, I feel so nervous speaking in front of people. What do you recommend? And you can practice with recommend and gerund. Now, I know a lot of you are watching the replay. You're not here live with me, but still write your example in the chat. I do read the comments after the replay as well. And also open your mouth and speak, speak, speak. I recommend. So practice that. Just get that pronunciation. I recommend. Here we go. AK said, I recommend learning from Jennifer. Exactly. Very nice. And I'm so glad you recommend that. I recommend learning from Jennifer. Now, you can learn from someone, which you're doing right now. You can also learn with someone, learn with Jennifer. You could use that preposition as well. Excellent recommendation. Now, notice as the noun, excellent recommendation. Recommend is the verb, recommendation is the noun. So, excellent recommendation. It's a something. Okay, excellent job. So, let me review another one. So Wake Up said, I recommend taking our verb in ing. I recommend taking a deep breath. Let's practice that. That is excellent advice. And honestly, Wake Up, before I started this live stream, I took a deep breath. So excellent recommendation. Recommendation. I recommend taking. Very good. And you take a deep breath. Excellent job. Okay. Ansia said, I recommend keeping improving even if you feel nervous. Yes, in this case, I wouldn't use the keep. I would just say, I recommend improving even if you feel nervous. Keeping improving, I recommend keeping improving. I would probably just say, I recommend improving even if you feel nervous. Excellent recommendation. Okay, and Jonathan said, I recommend you studying more vocabulary with JForrest. Well, thank you so much. But this is a mistake, a common mistake. We can't mix these structures. So notice you can either say, I recommend subscribing with your gerund, or you use, I recommend you subscribe. So you can't use the subject and the gerund. It would be, I recommend studying more vocabulary with JForrest, or I recommend you study more vocabulary with JForrest. All right. Awesome job, Jonathan. Great recommendation. Sweetie said, I recommend practicing in front of the mirror. So notice recommend and then our verb in ing. I recommend practicing in front of a mirror. Excellent advice. And I agree with that suggestion as well. So many amazing recommendations here. And again, that noun form, recommendations, that's a something. Okay, so now we practiced with the gerund. So let's practice with the clause. Remember, the clause is a subject, a verb, and an object if the sentence requires it. So here you can see it again. I recommend you subscribe, and you can use an optional that. I recommend that you subscribe. I recommend you subscribe. So, what would you provide now in the clause? I feel so nervous speaking in front of people. Can you please help me, Jerry, Jamie, Moses, Fred, Stella? Can you please help me? Can you give me your recommendation? So, there it's the noun form. Can you give me your recommendation? Any recommendations you could share? Can you recommend anything? So, you can use the noun form, recommendation, or the verb form when you're asking to receive it from someone. Okay, so I recommend you keep practicing. Exactly. So in this case, we have our verb keep, and then notice how the next verb practicing is in the ing. That's because in this case, the verb keep is a gerund verb. Keep learning, keep improving, keep going, keep working, keep eating, keep sleeping. Whatever your verb is in the ing because keep is a gerund verb. I recommend subject, you, verb, keep, and then the rest of your sentence. And because the verb keep is used, we need the gerund verb for the next verb. Excellent sentence structure, AK. Okay. Nicholas said, I'd recommend that start to speak with others who can't speak English. Yes. And notice how Nicholas said, I apostrophe D. Does anyone know what this is short for? I'd recommend. I would recommend. So you can absolutely say this because it's introducing it. I would recommend. I'd recommend that you start to speak with others. So you need the subject here, that you start. Otherwise, the sentence is perfect. Excellent job, Nicholas. An excellent recommendation. Okay. I recommend to read English news regularly. Yeah, so notice here it's the infinitive. This is an acceptable sentence structure. It's not the most common. A native speaker would say, I recommend that, optional. I recommend you read. I recommend you read English news regularly. All right, excellent recommendation. Yes, we have some great comments. Okay. Here we have Stella. I'd recommend noticing that apostrophe D. I'd recommend you take care about your health. Yeah, you take care of your health. You take care of something. You should take care of your health. You should take care of yourself. You should take care of your health. Very nice. I'd recommend. So you can absolutely use that as well. Okay, excellent job. Now, if you're enjoying this lesson, if you want me to make more lessons where you practice your speaking and you get feedback in real time on your sentence structure, you want these live lessons, then put yes, yes, yes in the comments and make sure you like this lesson. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this lesson with your friends. And if you like it, if I know you like it, if more people like the video, put yes, 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 watch it, then I'll keep making these live streams as well. So, how about a different question? I need your help. I want to get in shape, but I hate going to the gym. Can you relate to that? Do you feel the same way? Now, notice to get in shape. To get in shape means you become healthy. So you can do that by losing weight, by gaining muscle, whatever that is. I want to get in shape. Get in shape. In shape. And the verb is get. I want to get in shape, but I hate going to the gym. And this time, I want you to use the verb suggest. Now, our same sentence structure, you can use suggest plus gerund or suggest plus that optional and a clause. I suggest subscribing to JForrest English. I suggest that you subscribe to JForrest English. So first, let's use suggest plus gerund. So remember, I suggest, and then you need a verb in ing. So again, please help me. Gore, Partik, Hajar, Ma, Fred, Asham, please help me. I want to get in shape, but I hate going to the gym. What would you suggest? What do you suggest? You can use the verb would or do as the auxiliary verb. What would you suggest? What do you suggest? Now, does anyone know what the noun form is? Suggest is the verb. What is the noun? The noun is, do you have any suggestions? Suggestions. I'd love to hear your suggestions. What do you suggest? What are your suggestions? Do you have any suggestions? Can you share some suggestions? All right, so that's the noun form. What do you suggest? So let's see if there are any suggestions. The noun, repeat that. That's a difficult word. Repeat after me. Suggestions. 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 Any suggestions? Excellent. Make sure you say it out loud. Okay. Let's look at some suggestions. And yes, Alexander knew that the noun form was suggestion. Great job. And reporters said, I suggest changing your diet. Yes, exactly. So to get in shape. So that could be to lose weight, to gain more muscle. I suggest changing. The verb is change and it's in the gerund form, the ing form. I suggest changing your diet. Excellent suggestion. So again, you can use that noun form to comment. Excellent suggestion. What a great suggestion. I appreciate your suggestion. Thanks for sharing your suggestion. So notice all those noun forms. Okay, any other suggestions? Here, I don't see a lot using the gerund verb. So remember, we're practicing with the gerund verb here. So I see a lot of different sentence structures. So let's see one with the gerund. Wake up has a gerund. I suggest watching what you eat. Yeah, so similar advice to what we just had from reporter. He said, I suggest changing your diet. I suggest watching what you eat. Now, when you watch what you eat, you don't just literally watch it as you're eating a sandwich and you look at it. When you watch what you eat, we use this. Someone might offer you a piece of cake and you say, oh no, I'm watching what I eat. So, this is an expression that means you're being careful about what you choose to eat or not eat. And you're doing this to be healthier, to lose weight. So you're watching what you eat. You're trying to purposely consume more healthy food and not consume unhealthy food. So someone offers you a piece of cake. No, thank you. I'm watching what I eat. What about you? Are you watching what you eat? Okay, Carlos said, I suggest exercising hard, especially if you want. If you want, we don't want that S there. You add the S if it's he or she or it, but not with any other subject. If you want to get in shape. So excellent suggestion. Excellent suggestion, Carlos. I suggest exercising hard. Okay, great suggestion. Let's see. Any other ones with a verb? I suggest, Fred said, I suggest, notice we have our ing. I suggest buying home workout equipment. Well, that's a great suggestion because I hate going to the gym. Now, because I don't like going to the gym, I hate going to the gym. Fred is suggesting that I work out at home, that I buy home workout equipment. Very good suggestion. I suggest buying. So that verb and ing. Very nice. Okay, sorry, I don't know how to say your name. I suggest giving up all junk food. Exactly. So notice how I said it a little bit differently than what was written because food, we view this as a collective noun. So when I go grocery shopping, I say, what food do we need? What food do we need? Oh, we need lettuce, chicken, bread, eggs, milk, butter, celery, tomatoes. And then you list all the different food, but we don't add an S to food. So I suggest giving up all junk food. Do you know what junk food is? Can you think of an example of junk food? We refer to all food that is generally not good for you, very high in sugar, salt, as junk food. And it's food that is just easy to eat. So, chips, chocolate bars, candy, anything like that, we just call junk food. I suggest giving up. And when you give something up, it means you no longer do it. I suggest giving up all junk food. Excellent suggestion. Excellent suggestion. Anything else here? Moses says, I suggest preparing your mind first. Okay, your mind firstly. I know that was it's a typo. This is what we call a typo when you accidentally hit the wrong letter. So here, the person wrote it with a T, tour, but that's a typo. It should be with a Y. And if you look at your keyboard, they're side by side. So it's a typo. I suggest preparing your mind firstly. Yeah, so mentally preparing. I suggest mentally preparing your mind. So notice our verb is prepare and it's in the ing form. Okay, and Suzanne said, I suggest visiting a nutritionist. A nutritionist. So this is a specialist. I'm not sure if a nutritionist is officially a doctor, to be honest. Perhaps they have a medical degree. I'm not sure. So a professional, a specialist that specializes in what you eat and the vitamins you get, the nutrients you get, a nutritionist. And you can visit a nutritionist. I suggest visiting a nutritionist. Excellent advice, Susan. Okay. And Corinth Theanis. Sorry, I'm probably did not say that correctly. I would suggest. Everybody, let's practice that pronunciation of the contraction so you sound like an American native speaker because that's the English that I speak. I'd. The. Notice how soft that D is. I'd suggest. So when you say it as a sentence, I'd suggest, you really don't hear that d at all. I suggest, I suggest, I'd suggest. It's almost indistinguishable. But in written English, you have to include it. But in spoken English, you don't really hear it. So let's practice I'd suggest. I'd suggest. Keep practicing that. I'd suggest jogging in the morning. And that's a great suggestion because we need the noun form. Everyone has such amazing suggestions. Really great job. I'm so happy with all of these. Now let's practice with a clause. So remember, our clause is we need a subject, a verb, and an object, and an optional that. So now with the clause, I want to get in shape, but I hate going to the gym. Can you relate to that? This is actually true for me. I hate going to the gym. So all of these suggestions are very helpful. Thank you so much. What else? What other suggestions do we have? And this time we'll practice with a clause. Okay. Here we go. Mike has a clause because I see a subject, a verb, and then the rest of the sentence is the object. And remember, there's an object is more commonly written, and in spoken English, native speakers frequently don't say that in spoken English, but we're more likely to include it in written English. But just know that both ways are correct. I suggest that you train yourself at home. Very good. So, train yourself, work out, do exercises, many different ways to say the same thing. Excellent sentence structure, and thank you for your suggestion. Okay, Stella said, I suggest to my friend we practice beach tennis 3 times a week. Very good. This case, I suggest that we practice beach tennis 3 times a week. Now, if you actually did say this to your friend, you would put your verb in the past simple. I suggested to my friend we practice beach tennis 3 times a week. Because if you're telling us now, you already did this. So you already made this suggestion. So the verb suggest needs to be in the past simple. But excellent sentence structure. So you can say, I suggested to my friend that we practice, or I suggest we practice, because you can use any subject. I suggest they practice. I suggest we practice. Very good. Pong said, I suggest you should apply an intermittent fasting method. Yeah, very good. I suggest you apply. You don't need the should, because should is also a different way to introduce a suggestion. If you use should, you would just say, you should apply an intermittent fasting method. I suggest you apply an intermittent fasting method. So I wouldn't use both suggest and should in one sentence like this, because they have a similar meaning. But excellent suggestion. Okay. Jamie said, I suggest to you swim in the pool 3 days a week. Okay, so remember that sentence structure. We have I suggest. Now, instead of to, you can have an optional, not required, optional that. I suggest that you swim in the pool 3 days a week. Now it's correct. Or you can get rid of to altogether. So I suggest you swim in the pool 3 days all week. So not at week, it's all week per week. You can use either all week per week. All right, excellent suggestion, Jamie. Banu said, I suggest that you must not eat fast food too much. Yes, very nice. You must not eat fast food too much. So if you said too much, it means that I can still eat some fast food, just not frequently. So limit the amount, maybe 1 day a week, 2 days a week, but not too much. Very good suggestion. Okay. Sweetie said, I suggest that you do brisk walking whenever you can. Yeah, very nice that you do brisk walking. So, brisk is when you walk at a faster pace, a more intense pace so your heart rate increases. Because if you just normally walk, is your heart rate probably wouldn't increase. But if you walk briskly, briskly is the adverb. I suggest that you walk briskly whenever you can. So you walk at a faster, more intense pace so your heart rate increases and is more exercise. Excellent suggestion. Okay. Vitali said, I suggest you use a bicycle to commit to work instead of a car. Yes, excellent suggestion. I suggest that, or optional that, I suggest you use a bicycle. I don't know what you mean to commit to work. You wouldn't commit to work. You could use it to, oh, I bet this is a typo as well, to commute to work. So UTE, to commute. Yes. Excellent suggestion. Very nice suggestion, Vitali. Okay. Ada said, I suggest that you watch social movies. Okay. I don't know how I'll get in shape, but maybe the movies can be related to working out, perhaps. But excellent sentence structure. Now, there is a formatting issue here. And formatting is extremely important in English because it makes your writing look professional or not very professional. And the formatting issue is you need a capital I. The subject I is always capitalized. I suggest that you watch social movies. There's no difference in pronunciation. I said it again, but there's no difference in pronunciation. But the capital I always needs to be uppercase capitalized. The subject I. All right. Other than that, excellent suggestion. Now, how about this? I need some help. I need your help. I do way more work than my teammates. It's not fair. So if I do way more work, way is an intensifier. It makes it stronger. I could say I do more work than, notice, than my teammates. So my teammates do 10% of the work. I do 90% of the work. My teammates do one assignment. I do 5 assignments. And you can add way to make it sound stronger. I do way more work than my teammates. It's not fair. So fair means that it's just, it seems that it is the right thing. So of course, them doing one assignment and me doing 5 assignments, that doesn't seem fair. If it were 2 and 2, 3 and 3, then it seems fair. So now let's practice with the verb advise. First of all, pronunciation. The noun is advice. Advice. The verb is advise. Notice that voice. Advise. Advise. Repeat that out loud. Advise. I advise. I advise. Thanks for the advice. Repeat. Advice. Advice. Thanks for the advice. Advise, verb, advise, advice. Okay, you have the pronunciation. Make sure you practice that. It's very important. Now, same sentence structure. Isn't this easy? We have recommend, suggest, advise, the same sentence structure. I advise subscribing to JForrest English with our gerund. I advise that you subscribe to JForrest English. Remember, that is optional. So let's practice with the gerund first. I do way more work than my teammates. It's not fair. Can you give me some advice? Can you give me some advice? That's the noun form. Can you give me some advice? I need your advice. I need your advice. Can you give me some advice? What would you advise? That's the verb form. What would you advise? What do you advise? Okay, let's see if anyone has shared any advice in the comments. And notice I said any advice, some advice. What do you notice about that? Any suggestions? Any recommendations? Any advice? Advice is a singular noun. So it does not exist with an S. There is no word in English, advices, with an S. I hear this from students every day, but it does not exist. So make sure you can use some. Can you give me some advice? It has to be singular. Some advice, no S. Some suggestions with an S. Some recommendations with an S, but advice, no S. Remember that. Advice, no S. Okay, so do you have any advice for me? Let's see. An advice plus gerund. Advice plus gerund. Mariana said, I advise making a meeting to talk about it. Ah, that's a very good piece of advice. Now, notice because advice is uncountable, we don't add an S. If you do want to highlight one, you say piece of. That's a great piece of advice. That's a great piece of advice. You could also just say, that's great advice. That's good advice. You don't have to say piece of, but if you want to show the number, you use piece of. You could say, I shared 2 pieces of advice with my coworker. I shared 1 great piece of advice with my coworker. So that's how you make it plural or singular. You add piece of. But for the most part, you can just say, that's great advice. Thanks for your advice. Now, Mariana, we wouldn't say make a meeting. You don't make a meeting. That verb make isn't correct. You would say, I advise scheduling a meeting. So you can schedule a meeting. I advise scheduling a meeting to talk about it. Otherwise, it's perfect. All right. Excellent advice. And I agree. That is a good piece of advice. All right. Alexander, a little bit on the other side. I'd advise looking for another job. Exactly. So if things aren't working at this job, if it's not fair, so the workload isn't fair. Workload is the amount of work. And you can have a heavy workload and a light workload. So heavy workload means you have a lot of work, and a light workload means you don't have a lot of work. So if I have a heavy workload, but my teammates have a light workload, it's not fair. So I should look for another job. I'd advise. I would advise. I'd advise. Repeat after me. I'd advise. I'd advise. I'd advise looking for another job. And notice that preposition. You look for something. You can look for your pen because you don't know where it is. So you look for something. I'd advise looking for another job. Excellent advice, Alexander. Oh, right. Banu, I advise discuss that with your teammates. So, good piece of advice. Notice again, I said piece of, but what do we need to do here? There's something incorrect about this sentence structure. Do you know? Banu, do you know? Everyone watching, do you know what change needs to be made? It's really useful to think about this when you see a comment On YouTube or on social media, don't assume that it's correct. Question, is that using correct sentence structure? So what do we need to do? Banu knows. I advise discussing that with your teammates. Excellent job, everyone. Okay. Horatio said, I advise looking for a new work team. Yes, exactly. So in this case, maybe it's not a new job. Maybe in the company, there are different areas, and I can find a new team in the company I currently work for. I advise looking for a new work team. Exactly. Very good piece of advice. Excellent. Moises said, I advise talking to your boss. Exactly. And notice you talk to someone. You can talk to someone about something. I advise talking to your boss about the workload. Remember? About the workload, about how the work is being divided. So I advise talking to your boss about. Very nice. Okay, Mohammed said, I would like to give you piece of advice. Oh, so I advise you abandon your current job. Really nicely done, Mohammed. I'm so happy you tried to use piece of advice. There's just one minor but important. And this is the hard part about English is that there is one very minor mistake, but it makes a big difference in how your level sounds. So, does anyone know what the mistake is here? Because unfortunately, Mohammed, that the mistake you made, it makes your level sound low, but the mistake is a very small mistake. But let's see, does anyone know? Yeah, I see some comments here. Exactly. So, sweetie, and Jasmina, piece of advice. Yeah, even Muhammad, you knew. Piece of advice. Oh, and Muhammad said, my bad, my bad. I like that. My bad is a very natural way, a very casual but friendly, colloquial way of saying, I made a mistake. My bad, my bad. Exactly. But the important thing is, if you make, even though it's just a very minor mistake forgetting the article, if you were to submit your application, resume, cover letter, or a report to a client and you made a mistake like this, unfortunately, it would have a big impact, even though it's a small mistake. So, what you need to do is after you write something, make sure you review it to make sure there aren't these minor mistakes that have a big impact. But oh wow, so many people knew it was a piece. Really great job, everyone. I'm very happy that everybody knew that. Okay, so let's keep practicing. Advise, advise plus Jaren. Okay. Luis just I advise you watching English movie whether you want to be fluent in English. What do we need to do here? So think back to that sentence structure. You can use I advise plus gerund, which is your verb and ing, and you use watching your verb and ing. But then you also had the subject. I advise you. So what you need to do is either get rid of you, I advise watching, or I advise you watch and just use the verb watch. All right, great piece of advice. Great piece of advice. So now let's practice with a clause. We just reviewed it, but let's review it one more time. The clause is I advise, optional that, more common in written English, less common in spoken English, but both are correct. And then we need a clause, which is a complete sentence, subject, verb, object. Okay, so again, I need your help. I do way more work than my teammates. It's not fair. Do you have any advice? Do you have a piece of advice? Can you share some advice? What would you advise using that verb form? What would you advise? So let's practice. I advise plus clause. Subject, verb, object. Okay. Jonathan said, I advise you to collaborate with them. So instead of the infinitive to collaborate, you just need your verb. So I advise you collaborate with them. I advise you collaborate with them. Excellent piece of advice, Jonathan. Thank you for that. I advise that you should stay calm and do your job in time. In time. All right. Good piece of advice, Banu. In this case, on time and in time are very similar in meaning, but when you use them matters. So we use on time if there's a deadline, for example, 5 p.m. And I submit the report at 4:30. I submitted it on time. Now we use in time to talk about before something negative happens. So I got to the airport in time because I didn't miss my flight. So that is the something negative that happens. Those two, on time, in time, they're very similar. I believe I have a full lesson on that. So you can search my channel for on time, in time to learn more about that topic. Okay. And AK said, I advise you find another job. Very good. Good piece of advice. Thank you for your advice. Excellent. Janet said, I advise that you discuss the workload with your coworker. Oh, I love it, Janet. Sounds very advanced. And I love how you use workload. I don't know if you just learned that from me in this lesson, but excellent job. It sounds very advanced. I advise that you discuss subject, verb, optional that. I advise that you discuss something, discuss the workload, and you discuss something with someone. Discuss the workload, something with someone, with your coworker. Excellent sentence structure. It sounds very advanced. You nailed it. You nailed it. You know what that means, right? You nailed it. You did an amazing job. You nailed it. Great job, Janet. Okay. Jag said, I advise you communicate with your teammates. Exactly. You communicate with someone. I advise you communicate with your teammates. Excellent piece of advice. Horatio said, I advise that you talk to your team. Exactly. Talk to someone. And in this case, team, remember that team, the word team is a collective noun. It represents more than one person. I advise that you talk to your team. Excellent. Okay. Sweetie says, I advise you discuss with your teammates and make a workload plan. Yeah, very good. Make a workload plan. So the workload is the amount of work. So if you make a workload plan, it sounds like we're discussing who does what. Okay, I'll do this, you do that, she can do this. So you make a workload plan. I really like that. The only thing I would say is you discuss something with someone. So, with this something, I would just use the word it. I advise you discuss it being the workload. You can also use this. I advise you discuss this situation, or it, the workload, with your teammates because it sounds incomplete in English to say discuss with someone without specifying the what. You discuss something with someone. Jamie said, I advise that you talk with your boss. Exactly. That you, subject, verb, and you talk with someone. Now, notice before you can talk to someone, you can talk with someone. Ultimately, they're the same. Talk to sounds like right now I'm talking to you. It sounds more like a one way conversation. The emphasis is on one person speaking, the other person receiving. When you talk with someone, it sounds more collaborative, more of a conversation, but ultimately they're the same and you can use both prepositions. Okay. Sobriova. Sobriova. I advise you to communicate with your team and your boss. Yes, exactly. You don't need that preposition to. You don't need the infinitive. You can just use the verb. I advise you communicate with your team and your boss. All right. Excellent. And yes, Luis said, thanks for your advice. Oh, there's just a spelling issue. Otherwise, this would be perfect because you spelled it as the verb form. So, grammatically, this requires the noun. And I'm sure you meant the noun, but you spelled it as the verb. Thanks for your advice. Advice is the noun, and we need the noun because this is a something. Your advice. Your advice. Very good. So close to nailing it, but you made a typo most likely and you wrote S instead of C, but that changed it into the verb form. So it's interesting how just a small typo or a small mistake can really create a big issue in English. And this is why you always want to review your work before submitting it. Now, of course, if you were to submit a job application, you would want to review it many, many times compared to just submitting a comment where the consequence of a mistake isn't very high. Okay. Paulo said, I advise that you explain the situation to your teammates. Exactly. So you explain something, you explain the situation. The situation is something to your teammates. So you explain something to someone. And it's really important when you learn new words, new vocabulary, you learn the full sentence structure. You know what prepositions you need. You know the different sentence structure options. In this case, when you're learning something with multiple sentence structures, you can always learn one sentence structure first, the gerund, and then when you get comfortable with that, you practice that, then you can learn another sentence structure and then practice that and get comfortable with that as well. Excellent job, Paulo. Okay, how about one more piece of advice that you can share and we'll review a few more. Well, I have to share this one because MD said, I advise. There's a spelling issue here, though, because if I were to pronounce this as you wrote it, I would say I advise. But that's not correct because we need a verb. So I have to change the spelling. I advise the verb. I advise that you learn English from JForrest English. Well, I really appreciate that. I appreciate your advice. And thank you for advising everyone to do that. So I agree. So, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment as well. And make sure you use that verb form though. So be careful with these two words because a spelling mistake can create a big issue. All right. Mo said, another one of these mistakes. We were doing so well, but now another mistake here with the spelling. So again, This is the noun form that you wrote, but we want the verb form. I advise. That's the verb. So you need to change this to an S. I advise that you read the labor law book. So let's review this. I advise that is optional. And then you need the subject, verb, and object. I advise you read, that you read, or you can use the gerund. I advise reading the labor law book. Okay, let's do another one here. Alexander said, I'd advise that you stop monitoring other people, but rather focus on your work improving. Excellent piece of advice, Alexander. Excellent piece of advice. Very nice that you stop monitoring. So notice monitoring is in the ing form because stop is a gerund verb. Stop monitoring other people. In this context, in this meaning, it's a gerund verb, but rather focus on your work improving. Excellent piece of advice, Alexander. Okay. And reporter said, these are some great pieces of advice. You got it. You nailed it because we have some, which is a plural word. Great is your adjective. Pieces with an S because you said some. So we need pieces with the S, but advice without the S because it's uncountable. These are some great pieces of advice. You nailed it. Excellent job. And I completely agree with you. Everyone has shared such amazing advice, and I completely agree. Do you want me to do another live stream where we can keep practicing together? We can speak on a different topic as well. We can practice speaking using different vocabulary, different topics. So if you want me to keep making these live streams, and I'm talking to you watching the replay as well, because you can still participate even if you're not live, then make sure you like this video, of course, subscribe, and put yes, yes, yes in the comments. Because if I know you like this style of lesson, and I know it because a lot of people like it, a lot of people say yes, 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 then I will keep making these lessons for you, and we will keep doing these lessons where we practice speaking together. So I already see a lot of yeses. Thank you, Banu. Thank you, Horatio. Thank you, Andrew, Raporto. And thank you, everyone, for participating. Asham said, yes, yes, yes. Jamie likes it. Heidi Guy likes it. AK likes it. Awesome. I am so glad everyone likes it. Well, I need more people to say yes, yes, yes. So I'm convinced that you want more lessons. So keep putting yes, yes, yes. Like, subscribe, share this lesson with your friends. And if I know you like it, well, then I'll be back for another live lesson. I can't wait to see all of you in the future. Sending you all my love. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you soon. Bye, everyone.